Creator up VPN tier list.
Are you guys ever worried about getting doxxed? I know I am, and that's why I use a service like Incogni to make sure no one can find my IRL information if they find my name. A service like Incogni goes through all the available data brokers out there like white pages and these different websites. It will tell these websites to remove your information and it saves you tons of time. Use my link in the description down below to get 50% off Incogni as you see here on this website to get this deal. This is my top rated data broker removal tool. It's around half the price of competing services like Delete Me and it has a better interface to boot. So thanks for checking out this one and let's get back to the video. Hey guys, what is up? My name is Thomas Spark. Welcome back to another video. Today I wanted to talk about why do people on YouTube kind of hate VPN providers. Now I would say that there's kind of a couple different groups. There's like one privacy group of people who are kind of like system administrators. They don't really think anyone needs a commercial grade VPN. In some ways they'll make a video like this one here from Wolfgang or whatever saying like, hey, you don't need a VPN, you can make your own. And then in that same video where they say you don't need a VPN, they'll say you might need a VPN for torrenting or something like that.
Now, are there valid reasons to use a VPN? Of course there are. Here are some valid cases for using a VPN. You're on an open network, for example, airport or cafe Wi-Fi. You're at work or university and you want to hide your browsing history from your employer or your university. You want to circumvent censorship and access content that is blocked by your ISP or in your country. And finally, you want to torrent Linux ISOs in a country that is known to be very hostile and very strict about piracy.
So another funny thing about these creators is that they will say there are some use cases for VPNs like torrenting Linux ISOs, but they really kind of try to push you to make your own VPN, and that's because they are sponsored by these VPS providers. But you should not be torrenting Linux ISOs on these VPS providers. So it's definitely a little bit of a contradiction in my opinion there. It's not really anonymous in any shape or form. It's kind of a different type of VPN in a lot of ways. You have commercial grade VPNs that share your IP address with other users, so you're anonymized, whereas like if you're making your own VPN, that's not really the case at all. It's mainly kind of encrypting your network for security reasons or remoting in. So I would say that one reason people do kind of hate VPNs on YouTube is kind of like they seem like they're kind of misinformed or kind of trying to kind of tell you not to use VPN and use something else, or maybe they kind of get the reasons for using a VPN kind of mixed up. I would also say that some people do kind of have sponsorship content fatigue. And then what I mean by this is that if someone sees like a product promoted a lot, they might kind of feel like a hipster and kind of not like that product anymore. And I definitely think that's the case with what happened with Nord and Surfshark. I think these VPNs have gotten pretty good, and in fact they do top my rankings nowadays at vpntierlist.com, and I think part of that is because they have been so successful with their affiliate marketing and sponsorships and stuff like that. But at the same time, I think they kind of have saturated the airwaves and kind of made some people kind of turn against them a little bit in some ways, just because they're so tired of hearing about those products. Even if they do work well, I think there is something as sponsorship fatigue. So it's kind of interesting to think about. But I would argue, like I said, that these sponsorships have really let these companies become very big and popular and valued at a lot of money. I think a lot of these companies have figured out influencer marketing really well, and it's made them very successful companies. I think a lot of older companies, stuff like Apple, maybe even some other companies, there's like this company called Lovesack, which makes kind of cool beanbags that I like, but they don't have an affiliate program at all. They just kind of go into Costco, they have these pop-up shops, and they kind of do old school marketing. So I think, in a lot of ways, I think that kind of restricts them. So my counterpoint to having too many sponsorships on YouTube from VPNs would be that it has made them into better products. It's made them bigger companies, and it has made them successful. So I kind of understand both sides of that one. Thirdly, I would say that a lot of people on YouTube kind of misconstrue what VPNs are for. I would say that some people think VPNs are purely for illegal activities like accessing the dark web and doing nefarious things on it, torrenting copyrighted content or anything like that. And I would say that like that kind of audience in some ways is kind of like tells you to VPN and at the same time kind of doesn't. They'll say like, hey, this is the only reason to use a VPN, but if you're really doing that, maybe you should use Tor. There's like a certain privacy audience that at the same time likes VPNs but kind of hates VPNs. They'll say, hey, you should only use Molvad because it's the only VPN, does not track your account creation. It's the only VPN that stores nothing about you. So if you're doing some kind of criminal activity, you're gonna be okay. But at the same time, they say, well, you shouldn't use VPNs for those reasons. You should use Tor. So it's kind of like a hate and love relationship. It's kind of contradictory in my opinion. My personal feelings on that are you should pick a VPN that has a big server network, good speeds, it works with streaming compatibility, so you get some extra bonuses there and some cool features to boot, maybe even some bundled additions. If they're, requiring an email and sign up and some things like that, like a password, well, you could easily obfuscate that and stuff like that. So I'm not as an elitist when it comes to certain VPNs and stuff like that. I kind of just rate VPNs objectively all across the board. So I don't necessarily hate certain VPNs just because they don't have certain characteristics that these people want. So I think that's kind of interesting to think about. I would say another kind of conspiracy that people have about certain VPNs like Nord, Surfshark, and some of these other big ones is that they collect data. People theorize, how have these companies gotten so big? What's their purpose? Well, what do they need a purpose necessarily? These companies at the end of the day have a pretty simple product. You connect to a remote server through a protocol they didn't design, that being WireGuard, and that in some ways is all there is to it. It's not really that complicated. There doesn't necessarily need to be some grand scheme of data collection. It could just be that these companies found a good kind of easy way to make a product and then to just blast it to the airwaves as much as possible to kind of increase privacy at large and to make a lot of money. It doesn't necessarily need to be some grand conspiracy. Next up, I've seen that some people hate VPNs on YouTube because they cite performance concerns. A lot of people say that you shouldn't use a VPN. It's going to slow down your speeds a lot. However, since the advent of WireGuard, like I just mentioned, VPN speeds have gotten very good. And in fact, I made a video on my channel discussing how you could pretty much get 4K streaming no problems. With NordVPN right now, I get around 760 megabits per second top, and even without it on, that's kind of the range I would get anyways. So it doesn't really impact my speeds at all. So if you're not using VPN because you're worried about the speed decrease, I would say that's not really a legitimate reason either. Anyways, guys, those are some of my theories on why people on YouTube hate VPNs. I would say it's a combination of sponsorship fatigue, getting tired of seeing certain VPNs. My counterpoint to that would be, well, these VPNs have been successful and they keep doing it and keep making money, so I guess it's working, right? Even if they are tired of it. Secondarily, I would say some people don't like certain VPNs because they misunderstand the use cases of VPNs. They simultaneously say you shouldn't use these VPNs because they're not privacy friendly, recommend to use other VPNs that are perhaps more at first glance more privacy friendly, but at the same time telling you not to use VPNs if you are really concerned about privacy. So it's kind of like a catch-all situation, kind of contradictory in my opinion.